welcome to Unity Presbyterian Church Online. This week in worship, Pastor David takes a look at chapter 2 of Ruth and the ordinary miracles that God performs each day. Let's listen.
I really enjoy riding the Peloton bike, especially when it's too hot and muggy outside to run. Do I have any other people that enjoy the Peloton out there? Nobody? We had a lot first service, I just got to say. But no, the bike is so much fun. It's just one of those stationary bikes that you ride, and it's neat. I did a ride last week, and you can see who's riding with you at the same time that you're doing it, and any milestones that they're having on that particular ride. And then if you click their name, it'll give them a little virtual high five. It's pretty fun. Well, there was a milestone that caught my attention. It was someone who did their 400th ride. I was very impressed by that. I mean, I'm nowhere near that, but to do 400 rides on the Peloton bike was really neat. And then I noticed right below that was another person, Bilbo77. And Bilbo was doing his very first ride. I thought, oh, good, he's taking a break from watching Lord of the Rings to go and ride the Peloton a little bit. That's kind of neat. But what was capturing my attention was just at how different these two people were in their parts of their journey. These riders, one was just starting out, and the other was a veteran. Now, the veteran probably has his favorite instructor. The veteran probably knows, do I like the rolling hills or do I like the speed rides? But the rookie, the person who's on their first ride, all of this is new to them. And they're probably wondering to themselves, I mean, am I even going to survive this ride? Or do I want to just get back on the couch and find out, does Frodo destroy the ring or not? You know, I got to figure that one out. In our scripture today, we're going to study two people who are at two very different parts of their journey. Now, last week, we started a new preaching series where we're studying the Book of Ruth. If you were not with us, I'll catch you up on the story very briefly. There's a person named Naomi, and she and her family traveled to Moab because of a famine in their home country and hometown of Bethlehem. They spend 10 years in Moab, and then disaster strikes. Naomi's husband and her two sons all pass away. At that point, she tells her daughter-in-laws, you should go home. You should go home to your families, to your home cities, because she knows that life is about to get really hard for her. But one of her daughter-in-laws, Ruth, chooses not to leave. She says, Ruth, I'm going to be with you. And whatever it is that you're going to go through, any of the hardship that you're going to face, I want to be with you as you face it. I want to support you through that. And that's where we pick up our story today. So we have these two now main characters, Ruth and Naomi, and they are on very different parts of this journey. I want you to picture Naomi as that grizzled veteran. So she's seen the worst that the world can do, and she's got the scars to prove it. And she is less than enthusiastic about returning home to Bethlehem. But then Ruth, on the other hand, Ruth is like that idealistic rookie. She's like the person who's taken her very first ride. She's still learning, she's still growing, and she's really embracing this whole journey as a bit of an adventure. She's not cynical or jaded yet. Let's study both Ruth and Naomi and the different ways that they're going to approach coming back to Bethlehem, or really for Ruth, coming for the first time. We're going to pick up our story in chapter 1, verse 19. We're told, so the two women went on until they came to Bethlehem. And when they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them. And the women exclaimed, can this be Naomi? Yes, Naomi is recognized. Sure, it's been 10 years, but there's still people that know her, remember her, and are surprised that she has now come back. I mean, what would it be like for you if you returned to your hometown, wherever you grew up, after a long time of being away? I grew up in Federal Way, Washington, so it's 30 minutes south of Seattle. I grew up there from elementary school all the way up through high school, and I've not been back in a long, long time. I think it'd be a little bit strange to come back at this point. I would probably want to wear my nicest outfit, maybe get a fresh haircut, right? Just to really put my best foot forward to maybe those friends or acquaintances that I would see. Now imagine if it was even a much smaller town. Maybe you are from a small town like Bethlehem would be, what that would be like to return home to. Well, Naomi, she doesn't choose a new outfit, but she does choose a new name. Here's the next verse. Don't call me Naomi, she told them. Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. Okay, I've told you before that names in the Old Testament are extremely important, that names are given because they have a meaning associated with them. So the name that Naomi takes on is Mara, and in Hebrew, Mara means bitterness. She wants people to understand and relate to her life to say, my life is not in a good place right now, and because of that, I'm bitter. But what makes this even more heartbreaking is to recognize what her name Naomi means. Her original name means pleasant or delightful. So she's going from pleasant to bitter, which tells you how she feels the trajectory of her life has gone into a place of bitterness. Her life has not turned out like she expected. There's been a lot more sadness and heartbreak than she ever anticipated, and now she's bitter. She explains more in the next verse. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me. Doesn't it sound like all the wind has just been removed from her sails? These 10 years have changed her, and she would argue not for the better. She places the responsibility of her misfortune squarely at the feet of God, saying, God, you have caused this misfortune. You have caused the trouble, the hardship that I'm now going through. And you know what? I don't blame Naomi/Mara, but I think she has forgotten something. She has not returned to Bethlehem alone. She has Ruth by her side. And Naomi cannot see that right now, and that's understandable. Grief has a way of narrowing our vision, doesn't it? And yet she's returning home with someone who's there to support her. She's got Ruth, who says, where you go, I'm going to go, so that you can hopefully thrive even in this new kind of hard stage of your life that you are entering. Naomi has experienced this tremendous loss and doesn't yet see the gift that's right next to her. We go through life like that sometimes. I want you to picture you're driving home after just a really, really bad day. It was a day at the office that nothing went right, and you're exhausted driving home, and everything's kind of getting under your skin and annoying you more than usual. And then you get a flat tire, and you go, great, one more thing. This is so obnoxious, and you pull off to the side, and a friend happens to see your car, and they pull off too. And they say, well, can I help you change your flat? And then maybe another friend sees you and says, oh, I got some extra water. It's hot out. And these two friends, they make sure that you get home safely. And perhaps in your mind, you're still focused on that flat tire. You still can't see anything else that's good that's happening around you. But there is. There's friendship there. There's people that are supporting you and helping you. And that's a bit of what's happening with Naomi. There's some goodness in her life, but she can't yet see it. Naomi only sees the flat tire, not Ruth promising to help and support her. But she's about to. Here's the last verse of our first chapter. We're told, so Naomi returned from Moab, accompanied by Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, arriving in Bethlehem as the barley harvest was beginning. Those are important words. The author of this story is telling this story in such a genius way. Because remember how chapter 1 began. Chapter 1 began with a famine. There was not enough food. And now how is chapter 1 ending? With the barley harvest. With harvest just beginning. It's like the author is giving us a little wink as the reader and saying there's more that's going on than meets the eye. that God is at work. The barley harvest is just beginning. It's like the author is nudging us a little bit and saying, don't judge the story yet. Don't look at Naomi's fate and conclude that God has just abandoned her. There is more still to come. You know, some of the most important moments of our lives are like this, where we stand in the middle of the mess and we assume that the story is over, while God is quietly laying the foundation for the next chapter. Well, what is the next chapter for Ruth and Naomi? The one that's still on the horizon, but they can't quite see yet. Well, let's find out. Let's turn now to chapter 2. We'll pick it up in verse 2. Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, "Let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor." And Naomi said to her, "Go ahead, my daughter." So she went out, entered a field, and began to glean behind the harvesters. Okay, wait a second. What is Ruth doing here? Is Ruth stealing? Because that's what it kind of seems like, where Ruth is going into a field that she does not own, and then picking up loose grain that she also does not own, and bringing that grain home so that she and Naomi might actually have enough food to eat. Well, there's more going on here than meets the eye. Ruth is actually following an acceptable biblical practice called gleaning. Gleaning is the act of gathering leftover crops from agricultural fields after the main harvest. You have to put yourself in the context of this story, which would be 4,000 years ago, which was mainly an agrarian society where you planted and survived based on what you could reap. And in that world, God gave God's people a very specific command of what to do with their fields in the book of Leviticus. Here's the command on gleaning. God says, "When you reap the harvest of your land, do not reap to the very edges of your field, or gather the gleanings of your harvest. Do not go over your vineyard a second time, or pick up the grapes that have fallen. Leave them for the poor and the foreigner. I am the Lord your God." This is a really incredible command when you think about it. When God tells the people, don't reap to the very edges of your field. And if you drop grapes on the ground, don't go and pick them up. Just leave them. Just leave them where they lie. Why? So that those who are poor and who cannot afford to buy the food from your field may enter your field, your private property, after the reaping is complete. And so that they can collect what is left and they too can survive. Now, the act of gleaning may sound strange to our modern ears because we are used to extracting as much value from something as humanly possible. Like if I were a farmer today, I would not want there to be any leftover crops. I'd want to harvest every inch of my field so that I could sell as many crops as possible and make as large as a profit as possible. I mean, we live in a very capitalistic mindset, don't we? Where we want to maximize everything. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But God offers us another way. In Israel's ancient economic system, God made sure that the poor and foreigners would always have enough to survive. I mean, God told the landowners, don't maximize your profits at the expense of the vulnerable. It's okay to make a little less so that everyone can survive. I mean, in a world where we just got our first ever trillionaire, these are words that we need to hear, don't we? Ruth was that vulnerable person. She would not have survived if not for this biblical practice, this law given by God for gleaning. And so that is what Ruth does. And here's what our next verse says. As it turned out, she was working in a field belonging to Boaz, who was from the clan of Elimelech. Now, I want you to pay particular attention to those first couple of words, as it turned out. We might use that phrase to describe something seemingly random that happens in our lives. Like you might say, well, I went to Walmart the other day, and as it turned out, my neighbor was also shopping at Walmart. What a coincidence. In Ruth's mind, that's exactly what is happening. That she just happens to be gleaning in this field that is owned by this man named Boaz. What the author of this story wants us to understand is this is not coincidence. The author of this story wants us to see the invisible hand of God guiding Ruth to this very particular field where she ends up gleaning. We know this because that phrase, as it turned out in the original Hebrew, is written in an intentionally humorous way. The Hebrew, if you transliterate it into English, says, she chanced upon. Now, it's a little clunky in English, I'll give you that. But you get the idea. The author is saying, oh, Ruth thinks she just chanced upon this field. But we know there's more going on than meets the eye. We know that God is responsible for what's happening in Ruth's life. That God has seen what Ruth has done for her mother-in-law and is now guiding her to this very field where she can survive and get what she needs for she and her mother-in-law. From Ruth's perspective, this is just coincidence. But from the reader's perspective, we see God's providence at work, the invisible hand of God guiding Ruth to this field. Have you ever met someone and then realized only much later how that encounter changed your entire life? Like maybe it was going to that college class and that person seemingly randomly just sat right next to you. Or maybe it was a person you just happened to meet in Bible study or another group project at work. And if someone were to ask you later that day, how was your day? You would say, oh, it was normal. It was normal. Nothing out of the ordinary happened. And it's only years later that you look back and realize that was the day that I met my spouse. Or that was the day that I met my future best friend. Or that mentor who made such an impact on my life. We usually can't see it in the moment, but there are times we look back and we see God's hand. We see God as the one who's instructing us, moving us in certain situations. Even though there are seemingly random things, when we look back, we can often see God at work. Friends, I believe that God is working behind the scenes of our lives far more often than we give God credit for. So the next time you see something that you think is happening by chance or luck or happenstance, maybe pause for a second and say, is the hand of God in this? Can I see God at work? If you look closely, that's exactly what you'll see in this story. So Boaz, the owner of the field, arrives and spots Ruth. And he asks a very interesting question. In verse 5, Boaz asked the overseer of his harvesters, who does that young woman belong to? Note that Boaz does not ask, who is she? He asked, whose is she? And that's a question that doesn't sound very good to our modern ears, nor should it. But there's a reason behind it. In the ancient Near East, you were identified most often with your family, with your tribe, or your clan, right? These are my people. This is my group. And so what he's asking is, well, what group is she with? What clan does she belong to, right? Whose is she? And implicit in that question is, and under whose protection is she? Because Ruth stands out here. Ruth is a Moabite who is working in an Israelite field. And she's obviously poor because she's in the act of gleaning. So Ruth is out of place. But Boaz notices her and wonders to himself, who is this person that doesn't quite belong? And here's how the overseer responds. The overseer replies, she's the Moabite who came back from Moab with Naomi. So Ruth is not even given a name. She's just the Moabite. She's the foreigner. She's essentially what he's saying, she's the nobody. She doesn't matter. Just keep on with your day. But to Boaz, she does matter. So Boaz digs a little bit deeper and learns what it is that Ruth did for her mother-in-law. And when he learns what she has done and why she is here in Bethlehem, he goes to her and says this. So Boaz said to Ruth, "My daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field, and don't go away from here. Stay here with the women who work for me. Watch the field where the men are harvesting, and follow along after the women. I have told the men not to lay a hand on you. And whenever you are thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jars the men have filled." Boaz has done a couple of things that are incredibly generous here. The first thing he says is don't leave this field. Don't feel like you have to glean just one day and then go on to the next and go glean in that field the next day. He says, stay here. Stay here in this field that I own. And as long as you're in this field, you will have my protection. And not only that, but as you're working in my field, and you'll work long days from sun up to sundown, when you get thirsty, we've got water for you. The water that's normally reserved just for the hired workers, he says, Ruth, I want you to get water. What he's essentially saying to Ruth is that in this new world that you have traveled to, you're going to have security here. Life is going to be okay for you. You're going to be able to have enough so that you and Naomi can survive. To this, Ruth responds in an incredible way. She falls to the ground and then says, "Why have I found such favor in your eyes that you notice me, a foreigner?" I want you to pay particular attention to the word notice, because that's what Boaz did. She found favor in his eyes because he didn't just overlook her. I mean, the overseer said she's a nobody. Move on. Go along with your day. But Boaz noticed her, and she's in absolute awe that he stopped what he was doing and said, I'm going to ensure that you are safe. I'm going to ensure that you have what you need in this really dangerous world that you are living in. So our take home for today, for this sermon, is going to be really easy. Be like Boaz. It's not just a fun name to say, it's an example to follow. So that is our take home today. Be like Boaz. Because think about it. Boaz had power, and he used that power for the good of other people. Boaz understood that the blessings from God should not flow to him and then stop, but they should flow through him to those who are vulnerable around him in his world. So if you are like Boaz, then you can look around your world and say, who is my Ruth? Who is the person who's working hard but still struggling? Who is carrying a burden that you see that no one else can really see? Who feels like an outsider and needs to be noticed, needs to be welcomed? Boaz noticed Ruth in the field. When everyone else just saw a foreigner, he saw someone that he could help. So look around your life for a moment. Is there a single mother that could really use a free night of babysitting? Or is there someone who's just lonely that you can invite over for dinner? Somewhere near you, if you have the eyes to see, is a Ruth. Someone carrying a burden, or trying to find their footing, or just wondering if anyone else truly sees them or cares. What would it look like for you to allow God's blessing to flow through you and into their life? Be like Boaz. Amen.
If you would like more information about Unity Presbyterian Church, please visit our website at www.unitypres.org or visit us on Facebook. This is the Unity Presbyterian Church podcast. Have a great week.